Hello everybody, Dan from DanMoof. Great to see you. My goodness, it's been an interesting few months, hasn't it? Since FMOF declared bankruptcy in July of last year, leaving a big hole in the e-bike market. It has to be said. If you were interested in an urban e-bike solution for travel within a city, FMOF was one of the big names. It's one of the names that you went to, but now they're not there anymore. Their assets have been bought by a company called Lavoie, who are looking to start production in 2024. But for the time being, right now, who do you go to? If you want an e-bike, if you need to buy an e-bike right now, who do you go to? What do you do? What are the best options? A couple of months ago, a company called Cowboy, you'll know Cowboy is one of the key competitors to FMOF. A company called Cowboy reached out to me and asked if I would be interested in borrowing one of their bikes for a long-term loan and reviewing that bike and providing my honest views, my honest thoughts on it. So of course I said yes. This is the opportunity to do that, and there it is. So there's the bike that was delivered. It's the Cowboy Cruiser, and today we're going to review that. And here it is, the Cowboy Cruiser, live and alive in my living room. Now, I have to be honest, this is not really something that I anticipated happening anytime soon. As a FMOF owner through many years, I wasn't really expecting to have a Cowboy in my living room. But here it is, and you can see it, and you can really see the S5 resemblance, if you like. So this is the Cowboy Cruiser in sand. So I went for the sand color here that you can see. And it's a matte. What I'll do, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll go through the features and the specs first. So we'll walk through what the bike has, walk through what it is, before we move into my particular opinion on what it's like to ride objectively, and I'll be as objective as I can about the whole thing. So we'll walk through the features first, the specifications first, and then I'll walk into what it's like to ride and to own and to experience, based on my riding of this over the last month. So we'll do it like that. So let's start with what the bike is and what it has, and we'll start back to front really. So as I say, this is the Cruiser in sands. Now I originally chose the color lavender, which was difficult to deliver, and ultimately I dropped that order and I placed a new order for sand, which is what this one is. So let's walk through this from back to front. So different to the FMOF, it's a rear motor bike. So you can see the motor there. It's a 250 watt motor. It's similar in specifications to the FMOF motor. And you can see that it's got slotted disc brakes on there as well. So a 250 watt rear motor with slotted disc brakes, ventilated and slotted, and hydraulic calipers there as well. And you can also see, for those of you who can see through the spokes out to the other side, we've got a belt drive. So again, different to FMOF here. This is a single speed belt drive driven transmission. So there's no gears, there's no electronic gears, there's no mechanical gears. It is a pure single speed bike. And the way that Cowboy deal with this single speed effect on their bike is by something called adaptive power. And adaptive power simply means that the motor power compensates for where you are in the pedal cycle. So as you're cycling, as you're moving away from a traffic light, you need to apply more power to the pedals, and the motor compensates accordingly. So at any given time, it feels like a relatively constant, or it should feel like a relatively constant power delivery from the bike as well as from your pedaling. So that's the plan, that's the theory. They call it adaptive power, and it's designed to make a single speed bike effectively pedalable, manageable under all circumstances. So 250 watt rear motor, belt driven, and using adaptive power to compensate for having no gears. Special shout out to the pedals, because I mentioned this in the unboxing video, which you can see on this channel earlier. So the pedals themselves are very, very, very good. They're a very rough surface on here, a very sandpapery surface, equivalent to the Moto pedals that you can buy as aftermarket for the FMOF and for other bikes as well. So the pedals that come supplied are extremely good on the Cowboy. Genuinely very impressed with that as well. So single speed, very good pedals there. The brake light is adaptive, it's speed adaptive, and it is actually a brake light. It's tied into the battery pack, which is this black column that you can see here. More on that later, because I do want to get into the battery pack. If I'm honest, this segment here of the Cowboy bike is my least favorite of the whole bike. I have some things that I've changed my opinion on dramatically as I've ridden this bike. Many of them for the better. I've changed my opinion for the better in many, many cases. One of the things that I haven't changed is my opinion on this back pillow, which I think looks awkward. I'm going to call it awkward. I think it looks awkward. But really, that's one of my very, very few nitpicks of this bike at this current time. I'm not a fan of that, but I have changed my view for the better on many other aspects of the bike. So, as I say, this is an adaptive brake light. It does flash when you start to brake, which I think is a fantastic addition to any e-bike. Very, very useful as e-bikes become more common on the roads today. An adaptive brake light, I think, is a very, very good addition. This is the optional rear rack version, so you specify this at the moment of purchase. You specify whether you want a rear rack. You can buy it afterwards, so you can buy it from the web shop. You can buy it afterwards, but it's a bit of a challenge to fit. And if you want a rear rack, or you think you're going to be needing a rear rack, it's best to specify that at the point of purchase, and Cowboy will fit it for you. Another thing that's worth mentioning, the bike is supplied fully assembled, so it turns up in a huge box. If you think back to the generations of the S1, the S2, from Move, the boxes that they arrived in, this is similar to that. So there's no fitting of a wheel, there's nothing. The only thing you do, you fit the pedals, you turn the handlebars 90 degrees, and you're ready to ride. The bike is supplied fully assembled. Now, on the rear rack, how do they do that? Well, one of the reasons why it's important to have Cowboy do that, I think, is it's actually integrated into the frame that you can see here. So you can see that there's a bolt, it's underneath here, goes up here, and you loosen that bolt, the frame effectively comes apart at this join here. And that's for two reasons. One is so that we can fit this very, very strong, very, very sturdy rear rack, which is significantly better than the S3 rack on the Move S3. This is a proper heavy duty rear rack. I'm not sure what the weighting is on this. I believe it's 25 kilograms, but I can check the Cowboy website for exact specs on that. It's very solid, very robust, and it's fully integrated into the frame. So that's the first reason. The second reason, of course, is that you can fit the belt drive, because you can't cut this belt. You can't cut it, you can't join it. This belt has to be fitted as a single unit. And for that reason, if you want to get it onto the spline here, it goes through the frame. And the way to do that is to separate the frame here, move the belt in, and that's how you can change the belt out if you need to do that. Okay, so let's talk about the battery. So as I mentioned earlier, it's integrated into the frame, and it's not my favorite looking part of the bike, but it does have some key advantages when we compare it to potentially the Move competitors, not least of which is removable. And it's removable very easily as well. In fact, you have to remove it. If you want to charge it, you have to remove it. Now the bike comes equipped with a fast charger. It charges in 2 hours and 40 minutes. And you can bring the battery inside for charging. It's very easy to disconnect. The bike comes with 2 keys. Here they are. They are reasonably high security keys, and they go in here. Let me just look through the brake light, which is incredibly bright when you're at this distance trying to do it. Comes out like that, and the battery is removable from the frame. So there it is. It's easily carryable with one hand. In fact, it's carryable with 2 fingers. It's very, very easy to charge, very, very easy to fit, and in fact, it's a very solid addition, I think, to the e-bike. So it clicks very, very simply into position there. Now, of course, removable batteries, pluses and minuses, and one of the minuses, I think, is that it is a relatively small capacity. So it's a 360 watt-hour battery, and according to Cowboy, that gets you from 40 to 80 kilometers of range. I have found in my testing, it's a little under that. Now, it's very, very cold outside, and I've typically been getting around 40 kilometers of range on this bike. I do expect that to increase as I use the bike more, as the battery settles into its charging cycles. So I would expect around about 50, maybe 60 kilometers of range on this in the Netherlands, close to Amsterdam, on the flat surfaces here in moderate weather conditions. Realistic range, 50 kilometers approximately from this battery. But it is removable. It does charge very, very fast. Now, I will be honest again, and I will say, you need to adapt your riding patterns for a Cowboy. So with Move and with my other e-bike, which is Specialized, I was getting very, very used to weekly charges. You know, you charge it once, you use it a few times, and then when it gets to the end of the week, it gets to low charge, then you charge it up again, and you're ready to go for the next week. For the Cowboy, you tend to need to charge it pretty much every time you ride it. So that short range to me is a consideration factor. It's not necessarily a negative, but it is a consideration factor. It has a significantly shorter range than the Famovs that I have been used to. Having said that, removable battery I think is a very, very significant addition to the bike, and I'm very, very pleased to see it here. I've become used to it now and I like it very, very much. In fact, I'm actually getting used to the looks. So when it comes to things that I am positively impressed about this bike, one of the things, and I know some of my Famov colleagues may potentially disagree with this, but one of the things that I really, really like about this bike is the paint quality. I am honestly very, very surprised. I've heard some things that maybe the paint quality wasn't so good on Cowboy bikes. I've heard that from various quarters. My personal experience, which is all I can share, is that the paint quality on my bike, the particular bike that I have, has been absolutely superb. So I've ridden this bike into the city. I've parked it. I haven't been particularly gentle with it. I've put it into bike racks. I've thrown it into bike rack. Well, not throw literally, but I've used it like a bike is meant to be used. I've put it into bike racks. It's had other bikes bashed up against it. I've come back and found it on its side once, where somebody had very considerately taken it out of the bike rack and laid it on its side. Thank you for that. Not a scratch on the paintwork. Very, very robust and very, very solid. And you can see here, it's the fit and finish, I think, is outstanding on this bike. So if you have a look at the welds, you can see here the welds are incredibly smooth, very, very smooth throughout, even down here, where you wouldn't necessarily expect them to be finished well. They are absolutely smoothed off and very, very high quality throughout the bike. So you can see here also very, very smooth, even coming down to here. Now here is the only place on the frame where you can see a little bit of orange peeling, possibly not the paint, that's the weld under the paint. But beyond that, absolutely superb. Well done, Cowboy, on that. Very, very high quality paint job. In fact, the fit and finish on this bike is, I think, superb throughout. So you can see here there are no strange bits, there are no places where the paint is peeling or maybe of lesser quality. It's a very, very well thought out bike, very, very well finished bike. Okay, let's take a look at the saddle, the riding position and the cockpit. Now this is the Cowboy Cruiser. It's the comfortable version of the Cowboy bike. So Cowboy sell three bikes. They sell the Classic, which used to be referred to as the 4, which is the sporty version. It's got a sporty stance, and that was always one of the competitive differentiators between Famov and Cowboy, was that the Cowboy had a far sportier ride and the Famov had a far more relaxed ride. So the Cowboy Cruiser it's the relaxed variant. There's the Classic sporty version, there's the Cruiser, which is the relaxed city version, equivalent to Famov in terms of cockpit and riding style, and the Cruiser ST, which is a step-through frame, which, well, obviously you miss this bar here and it strengthens down here. So that's a step-through frame. And there's a few other differences as well. For example, the riding cadence is far more relaxed on the Cruiser, and you can see here, you can see that we have a very substantial wheel. We can't actually see the dimensions of this here, but it's a very substantial front wheel here. So the ratio here is a 3-to-1 ratio, which is very relaxed. It's a very relaxed cadence, and it's designed for city riding. At the expense of a little bit of power, a little bit of acceleration, it gives you that kind of relaxed riding style. And the rest of the cockpit, the seating position and the saddle is optimized for that as well. So you can see here the saddle, it's very, very soft. It's very squidgy. In fact, you can see I can put my thumb, with minimal effort, I can put my thumb straight into this saddle and it just sinks in. It's like a pillow. It's very, very comfortable to ride on. I haven't ridden hundreds of kilometers on this, and I don't know how it would stand up to that, but for the target audience, for the target riding style, which is in a city really, we're not looking at inter-city, we're looking at intra-city for a Cowboy bike, whereas a Famov, you might be able to travel between cities. A Cowboy is far more optimized for riding within a city, and the battery size obviously is a factor in that. For that particular use case, riding within cities, this is a very, very comfortable, very soft, very squidgy saddle. Very, very nice to sit on. And I would say a significant improvement on the S3 saddle, which was it was a question of taste, let's put it that way. So looking at the rest of the cockpit, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to turn the bike on, and I'll turn it on just by wheeling it forward here. There it goes, it lights up. So the rest of the cockpit, this is a 60 centimeter handlebar, and you can see it's curved. It's quite a moderate radius on this handlebar. You can see it's curved, and I would say it's very, very comfortable to ride. By the way, this is an aftermarket bell. This is a Knog bell. To me, I think it fits with the style of the bike very, very well. Cowboy do supply a bell, but I personally preferred this. So the Cowboy one is still in the box and currently not being used. In terms of the display, there isn't a display. I mean, you could call this a matrix display if you like, if you want to be particularly kind about it. This is just the battery level. It doesn't show any other information other than the battery level, 10 LEDs. Are we looking at 10? No, 8 LEDs. I lie. 8 LEDs showing the battery status. And of course, what you can see here is you can see a quad lock mount. And this, to me, I think is one of the most useful features of this bike. So buy yourself a quad lock case. Cowboy sell them on their website, and you can click your phone into this. You click it here, 45-degree turn, and it's locked into place. And on this, the performance bike, this is a wireless charging pad. So you click it in and your phone immediately starts charging. So performance, let's talk very briefly about performance. It's a €299 extra on top of the price of the bike. And for that €299, you get some features. For example, the adaptive power that I mentioned earlier, where it adapts to the cadence that you're pedaling at, torque, resistance, incline, and so on. So adaptive power is one of those features, and one of the other features is the wireless charging pad on the handlebar, which you can see here. Okay, so I would say €299, it's well worth it. I wouldn't buy the bike without that. It just makes such a difference. One of the things that the bike does not come with, and I will say here, I think this is not brilliant. I would much prefer to see Cowboy address this, is it doesn't come with a front light. Well, it does, but let me explain. It comes with a front light, but this is called a be seen by light. This one here is called a be seen by light, and what that means is other people can see you. So this light is the minimum required for riding in Holland. You need to have a light similar to this so that people can see you on the road, but it doesn't really help you see where you're going very far at all. You can do it. I have ridden with this at night and it's doable, but it's not a particularly pleasant experience. You can see maybe 3-4 meters in front of the bike with that in a very, very wide arc. It's not really designed for that. So what I've done, I've bought this bike here, this light here, which is from BBB. It's a company called BBB Cycling. And this is a 400 lumen bike light, which personally I think is very, very good. It doesn't detract from the aesthetics too much. It's quite a nice little bike, quite a nice little bike light, sorry. But I would prefer that Cowboy would include that with the purchase, a front light when you buy the bike. Okay, moving on to the rest of the cockpit. So the riding position here, you can see this is quite a long neck, and this is something else that's different on the Cruiser here. This neck here raises the handlebars slightly higher up. So I don't know if you can see that ratio there. It's a little difficult to capture on camera. Let me turn it that way. You can see the ratio there. It's approximately horizontal between the top of the handlebars and the saddle. For my particular riding position, that works well for me. Anything else of note to mention? Yeah, cabling. So cabling, wiring, very, very, very well integrated here. So these cables run straight in through the front of the frame. You can see them here into the front of the handlebars. What that bodes for maintenance, ease of maintenance and so on, I can't talk about. I haven't ridden the bike that long, but what it looks like from an aesthetic perspective and from a, what Vermoof call hofteproof, which means essentially antisocial behavior proof on their bikes, I would say that the Cowboy actually takes that to an even stronger extreme when it comes to wiring away through the frame. So the only exposed wiring is literally this bit here and this bit here. That's it. Everything else goes down inside the frame. And you can see that, and that comes out here. Now, as I say, these wheels did not need to be fitted by me. These wheels were fitted when the bike was delivered. All in all, a very, very strong, very robust package. Hydraulic brakes here that you can see, the hydraulic brake reservoir. Very reminiscent of Vermoof. Honestly, if there was a Vermoof logo on here, I wouldn't be at all surprised to have seen that, but it's not a Vermoof, it's a Cowboy. But this is a very, very similar design language to Vermoof's approach to the biking, and I like it. I think that is a good thing. Okay, let's talk about the tires. When I first saw these, so these are the tires, you know, as fitted to the bike. And when I first saw these, I thought, there's no way you're going to be able to stay upright on those. There's no way you're going to be able to go around a corner on those without sliding, without slipping. They will not stand up to leaves. They won't stand up to wet ground. There's basically no grip on them at all. I was wrong. I was very wrong on that. I don't know what they've done with these tires. I don't know how they've made these tires. I don't know what compound they're using for these tires, but they will not slip. I think they're absolutely fantastic. The tires, they have essentially no grip. I mean, if you have a look very closely, you can see there's this very fine surface on them here. For some reason, this manages to repel water very, very well. This was probably my biggest concern when I got this bike, was how on earth is it going to go through corners when it's wet or slightly slippery? And the answer is very, very well indeed. I don't know how, don't ask me about the science, but that works very well indeed. It still surprises me looking here and seeing this tiny, tiny front through axle here. I'm expecting to see a motor there, and of course there's no motor. It's at the back of the bike down there. There's no motor here to see at all. Just a hydraulic brake caliper. One other thing to note that you can see here, let me turn this. This is a through axle fitting. So rather than have the claw fitting, if you've seen a Famove bike or many other bikes, you have a down claw, which is like this, and then the axle kind of clicks in, and that makes it, many city bikes have that approach. Cowboy take a different approach. This is a through axle, and essentially you pull out, this whole pin comes out here, and then the wheel comes out. Now this is an approach that's used on mountain bikes, it's used on quite a lot of sport bikes that typically have quite a high level of abuse. So if you're mountain biking and you're throwing your bike down the side of a mountain or over rough gravel or over logs and so on, then a through axle similar to this is essential because it stops the wheel coming off. On a city bike, it's very unusual because it's more expensive to manufacture, so it's very unusual to see that. It's also very, very welcome because I think it's a very robust approach and it works very, very well. Okay, so let's talk about this, what it was like to ride this bike from the perspective of a Famove rider. So what's different? What do I like about this bike? What have I changed my view on? What do I potentially dislike? And what would I like to see in future versions? Essentially, what would I recommend for people looking for a Famove or a Famove alternative right now? So in terms of the things I liked about this bike, let's talk about that. I love the removable battery. I didn't think I would. Famoves tend not to have removable batteries. They do have the power bank, of course, but that's kind of a halfway house. I do like, especially in the winter, being able to charge my battery inside whilst keeping the bike outside. To me, that's a significant value add, and I think Cowboy should be commended on that, and they should be commended particularly on the way that they've done it, the way that they've integrated this battery into the frame. So it kind of looks integrated whilst still being removable, still offering those advantages. I'm still not a fan, I have to be said. I'm still not a fan of this thick pillar here, but you know what? I'm going to overlook that because the rest of the package at this moment in time is just so good. So I'm going to overlook that. Removable battery, yes. What I'm not a fan of the size of the battery. It's a 360 watt hour, its range at 50 kilometers. I will say that the Cowboy app is extremely accurate in assessing the number of kilometers that you have. When it says that you've got 30 kilometers remaining, that's what you've got. Down to maybe 1 or 2 kilometers plus or minus, what it says is what you've got, which gives you a great peace of mind if you're planning a route in. And kudos to the Cowboy app in just a second. I'll come back and explore that in a little more detail. The app itself is very, very well done. It's very well integrated with the bike. It's very, very well integrated with the whole experience. And it is a genuine value add. So Cowboy, well done on the app. Fantastic job there. Not a fan of the battery size and the short range. So what I'd like to see in the future is I would like to see a much bigger battery. And I do say much. I'd like to see twice the size of battery here. Maybe even the option to buy additional batteries. So that would be a good option in the meantime, is allow the option on the website for customers to spec a second additional battery. That to me would go a long way to reducing range anxiety, which for me over the last month has been a particular problem. Other things I like, I really, really like this rear rack. It's extremely solid. I'm glad I spec'd it. It's very, very robust. Takes me back to the good old days of my Batavus bike when I came to the Netherlands. Built to last, very, very solid, very robust. I'm a huge fan of the carbon drive that you can see here. This is the carbon belt drive, the Gates carbon belt drive. I'm a huge fan of that. Very, very quiet, maintenance-free, fantastic. And I do like the riding cadence, the 3-to-1 cadence that the Cruiser offers here. I'm a big fan of that. It works very, very well in the city with a relaxed riding style. It does mean that you need to put the power down a little more, and that goes combined with the slightly lower torque of the rear motor. You do need to do a little more work yourself. I would say, now I said this at the beginning of the video, I said that this is an S5 equivalent, and you know what? I've changed my mind. Over the last month, I don't think it is an S5 equivalent. I think it's an S4 equivalent. So I think the S5, you know, it's high tech, it's leading edge, it's got a lot of electronics in there, a lot of electronics in the gearbox, a lot of electronics in the riding experience, a lot of, you know, it's like driving a highly sophisticated car with an automatic gearbox. The Cowboy isn't really like that. It's a much simpler riding experience. It's effectively a single speed with some power. I personally like that. If you like that as well, then you'll get on very, very well with the Cowboy. If you're expecting a high-tech experience, not so much. The app itself goes a long way to mediating that, but I would say riding this Cowboy is very similar to riding the FMOV S4 in terms of it goes back to a simpler time. I love it for that. Your mileage may vary. Other things I particularly like about this bike, I do like the cockpit. I like the general riding experience. I love the saddle. The saddle to me is fantastic for inner city riding. For long distances, not so sure. For inner city riding, I think it's a very, very good saddle. I love the cockpit. I love the simplicity. And this takes me back to my S4 analogy. This handlebar, this setup here, where you can put the phone on here, you can put it on with a quad lock. I personally tend not to do that. I did in the beginning. Cowboy were kind enough to provide me with a quad lock case for my phone, which I have on it now, so I can use it, I can click it in, and it does work very, very well indeed, but I don't use it because I don't need to. I like the simplicity of I'm going to call it the matrix display. I love the simplicity of just having those LEDs to show me the battery. It's all the information I need. I don't need anything else for intra-city riding where I'm riding inside the city. Other things I like the cruisery, relaxed grips on the handlebar. I love the curve of the handlebar. The riding position works very, very well for me. I love the integrated nature of the cabling. So this is very, very well done here. And I love the fit and finish of the bike. Special shout out to the brakes as well, actually. I do like the brakes. They work very, very well indeed. They're very quiet, very simple, and they just get the job done. And the pedals. Brilliant, fantastic. Things I'm not quite so sure about. And I know I'm doing this this is a stream of consciousness really that I'm throwing at you here. And I apologize for that, so you can watch this video a couple of times and make the notes as you go through it yourself. But let's talk about a couple of things that I think potentially could be done different. And I'm struggling potentially to find these things. Not including a front light, I think, is a bad move by Cowboy. I think you should include a front light. I would like to see it integrated into the frame. I think that would make a big difference. I'd prefer to have it integrated, but if you can't have it integrated, at least supply it in the box. You used to do that. It used to be in the box when you bought a Cowboy and you've stopped doing it. Please, please, please bring it back. The be seen by light, so whether other people can see you, it's great. It's very good for that purpose. But customers are going to have to go out, buy their own bike light, which may or may not ruin the lines of the bike, depending on how they perceive that. I'd much prefer to see that integrated. FMOV had that very well done. So Cowboy, please either integrate it into the frame next time or supply a separate light in the box so customers can choose. What else? The pricing. So I know that Cowboy offer a number of tiers, and they've kind of played around with the pricing over the last few months. So they started off by having a basic bike that you could buy, and then that they called Core, and then you could add packages to that. So you could add the Performance Pack, you could add the Connect Pack to that. They stopped doing that. They got rid of the Core. They went to Performance, and now those packs have started to come back in again. So you can buy the Performance Pack. It costs $299. What you get for that is you get adaptive power, you get the wireless charging mount, and you get a couple of other things as well. To me, those things are not optional. You have to have them. So yes, I understand that Cowboy are looking to provide options for every customer out there. Personally, I would prefer to have one price, a little bit higher, and have everything integrated. You don't need to worry. The reason being, people don't necessarily know what adaptive power is, and they don't know how useful a wireless mount is on the handlebars until they've actually got it. So, and you can't fit it aftermarket, so you have to buy it at the point of purchase. To me, people are only going to realize that when they've missed it, when they haven't spec'd it, they've got the bike and they're feeling a little bit disappointed, because you know what? The experience without that actually isn't that good. So I would say, my personal view, include it as standard, ask a little more for the purchase price, because you need that pack. It's essential. What else have we got? The torque of the motor. The torque of the motor I think could be a little bit higher. I'm not quite sure what the specs are. I think it's 49 Newton meters, but I could be wrong on that. I'll check the Cowboy website and put that in the comments down below, and put a pinned comment down below to talk about the torque of the motor. To me, it's just enough. So I ride in the flat. I ride between Almere and Amsterdam in the Netherlands, and it's pretty much flat all the way. So there is quite a bit of wind and quite a bit of headwinds occasionally, but my riding style is pretty much 90% on the flat, except where I'm going up towards the train track and back down the other side. To all intents and purposes, the Netherlands is like it's been ironed. It's very, very flat. So my riding style is very flat. For me, the motor power is just sufficient. It does the job, but no more. My colleague in Germany rides a lot of hills, and for him, riding a lot of hills, it's a lesser experience. So for the next version of the bike, the torque could do with being improved. I will say I've been a little bit spoiled by my Specialized, which is my mountain bike that's in the shed at the moment, which has 90 Newton meters of torque, and that is an absolute beast. I'll do a review on that later so we can compare and contrast as well. But compared to that, and even compared to the Vermoof, I would say the Cowboy is slightly underpowered. For me, on the flat in the Netherlands, in the city, which is where the bike is really designed for, it's adequate, it does the job, but at no point does it actually feel what I would say is powerful. It does the job. And do you know what? That's it. That's it for things I'm not sure about this bike. Not sure on about this bike. Everything else has been, and I'm struggling to find the words here, because I'm coming from a point of view of a Vermoof owner for many, many years, very, very passionate about the brand. It's a brilliant bike. Cowboy, well done. This is a fantastic bike. I love it. The battery range is a problem for me, but part of that is mentally recalculating that I need to charge after every ride instead of doing a number of rides in a row. And of course, a couple of other things I prefer to see different. But in general, this is a very, very competent bike. Cowboy, well done. Thank you very much for lending it to me. I look forward to riding another couple of 100 kilometers before we decide what we have to do with the bike after that. So thank you very much indeed. That's it for me, DanMoof. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for listening to this. If you want to buy a Cowboy bike, there's a link down below, which is a referral link. You can click on that and it will direct you to whichever bike you want from Cowboy. Please do use that. I look forward to hearing from your experiences. If you've got a Cowboy bike right now and your experience is the same, or the experience differs from my experience, please feel free to share that in the comments below. If you've got any questions, share that in the comments as well. And I'll answer as many of them as I can. In the meantime, thanks so much for watching, and safe riding. Bye for now.